Hey, Trevor, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me today to talk all things attachment. It's a topic that I think does not get enough attention. You would probably agree, which is why you probably do what you do. So thanks for coming on HopeStream.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. You were telling me a little bit about how this whole thing came together, and it makes me even more excited to chat with you.
Yeah, I think attachment is one of those things that I didn't even hear about until I was well into the journey with my son. And
Yeah.
once I heard about it, because I think that word can feel a little overwhelming to people, maybe it's a little abstract. And so I'm really happy to have you here to break it down for us. But first, I gotta ask you this because I was reading in
Yes.
your bio. First of all, fellow broken jaw person here. I broke my jaw.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I was 16. How old were you when you broke your jaw?
Oh, it was when I was like 26 or 7,
Oh my
something like that.
gosh, okay. I kinda wanna
Uh,
hear that story. Can we hear it, like, short version of your
it
broken
it
jaw
was
story?
not even that exciting.
Oh.
So it's funny. I broke in two bones in my face on two separate occasions doing the same thing. So I grew up like skiing, and if there's anything I'm like really good at in life, the thing that you're like, it's not even bragging, it's just true. Like I'm good at skiing. And yeah, and so the first one, I broke my jaw, and I don't remember it at all because I was like fully knocked out, concussed, no idea. And apparently, I was just going down and next to a guy, and we kind of didn't see each other in a blind spot, and we collided, and it broke my jaw, like somehow. So that was that one. And then the other one was way cooler than that, which I was actually doing this. There's a trick called a cork 7 or a cork 720. So you're kind of like off axis and you're spinning twice. And then your feet kind of come back around underneath you. And I like did it a little weird. And when I fell, I hit my face on my knee and I like shattered my eye socket. And so actually to this day, I've got double vision. Like I see two of everything, except for in like certain little spots. Like we've corrected it over like four different surgeries for the most part, but like reading down here, double vision. Looking up high, double vision. Looking here in front of me, like it's pretty good, but it's pretty limited. So yeah, I just have a thing against my face. I was just like I'm just the God made me too beautiful, and he's like, "You need to be humble. Like, I'm just gonna beat you up.
I'm gonna take care
Bring."
of that.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna clean up this humility thing real quick, like, or this pride issue you got." So, yeah, now I got a crooked nose and double vision because of it, but you know what? Uh, there's definitely worse things.
You're making it work. You're making it work. Okay,
Yeah,
absolutely
I appreciate
hilarious
it.
story is that my broken jaw was also skiing. We don't have time to go
What?
into it, but I was not a good skier like you. I was a terrible skier. I was learning how to
Okay.
ski, and I
Oh,
fell down, and somebody came off a jump above me who was a good skier. However, they
oh
landed
no.
on me and skied across my face, which
Oh
is
no. Oh
what
no.
broke
Oh
my
no.
jaw. So that's a very
Dang.
interesting fact that we have in connection with each other. But
Dang.
also, I love getting into people's backgrounds. So I know you used to work at Tesla and now you
Yeah.
are a therapist. Please help me bridge that gap.
Yeah, so honestly, it's all connected in a lot of ways. So like I was going to school at BYU Hawaii, and BYU Hawaii is kind of like a small university. People don't really get like big corporate jobs. And at that time in my life, I was pretty insecure. I don't know if I would have called it that. I don't know if I would have been secure enough to even say that that's what it
Right.
was. Right. But it was this, and by insecure, I'll define it as a little bit of more sensitive to or afraid of like abandonment or rejection, always feeling like I'm not good enough, right? In dating, I was kind of a bit of the clingy guy. Like I wanted the commitment quickly because I wanted to lock you down
Right.
because I was afraid you're going to leave me kind of thing, right? Which is everything we're going to be talking about today too. We'll explain more, but I got this job at Tesla, and it almost felt like it was one more thing that kind of like propped me up and made me feel like I was good enough, like, right? It's like, oh yeah, I flew out to Tesla to do my interview, and I'm like this and that, I'm feeling good enough. And I got the job, and I went from like beautiful Hawaii with all these friends living on literally the beach
Right.
to Reno, Nevada. Everything was brown, everything was rocks. It was just work, work, work. I was living alone, and it was super hard. Um, anyway, I did that for a while. It was great, and then all things kind of collided at once. Where I broke my jaw. That's part of that story. I was engaged to a girl who, thank heavens that did not work out. It was not a good situation. A
Mm,
lot of toxic patterns. Um, and I also lost my job at Tesla all at the same time. It was like consecutive, everything run at once. And when I lost my job, it was due to a corporate wide layoff. And I was like managing all these like sales and delivery teams, and they just changed the structure and like, just pulled you out. And with a company that big, it's wild how many people they can get rid of so quickly. But anyway, I was one of them. And I also, on the tail end of that, like everybody could see, nobody really knew like what was going on in my relationship except for maybe my close family members because all my friendships were isolated
mm,
because she was really afraid of kind of the fears of abandonment and rejection. She also had them and they were like turned up really big to the point where
mm,
I kind of was isolated. I couldn't really see people. And everyone was always asking me, like, oh, are you healing okay? And they were talking about my jaw. But I would, like, in my mind, feel like they were talking about my heart because my heart was
mm.
just ripped up. Like, I was waking up from nightmares. I was depressed. I had scary thoughts about not wanting to be here and all the things. And I just was like, you know what? I'm going to go try to fix this. I'm going to figure out what's going on. So I went to therapy, discovered that it's really cool. I could totally make, and this is, I don't know, this sounds cocky, but I was like, I think I can make this better. Meaning, like, I did it and it was helpful, but I realized there's also some kind of some gaps in like the way therapy is done. And so I was like, you know what? I love my business mind. I'm going to apply that to an industry that maybe doesn't have as many business minds, and I'm going to also help people like the people that I was, the people who were fearful, insecure, and help them build like strength and confidence in themselves. So that was the jaw was part of the journey. Like you're asking all the same
Yeah.
questions, really.
Amazing. There's always a connection. It's so interesting. And I think it's so interesting that you recognize that when you were the recipient of therapy, that, oh, okay, this is helpful and it could be different and it could be better. So
Yeah.
that's really, really cool. All right. Well, that satisfies my curiosity about good job and all of that.
Those are good. Those are good things.
Um, so like I said, I think attachment can be a little mysterious and a little woo-woo and a little like, I don't know what that is. So could you just like base
Yeah,
level outline for us? What does it mean
for
when we
sure.
start talking about attachment? And then we'll dive into all the stuff.
Yeah, so we'll make it pretty simple. So you think when somebody says your attachment style, that's just like a cute little word to describe the internal programming you have going on in your head, specifically about two areas, how you feel about love and connection with other people and how you feel about yourself. Two things, and they're usually tied together. So we'll describe kind of the different programming. There's the more, we'll call them anxiously attached, attachment style. Those people are kind of like I was. The hallmark of that is that these are people who carry around beliefs that they're not good enough.
Okay.
Or it's kind of in question. They start to wonder, am I good enough? They don't feel very secure in themselves and their own worth. They sometimes don't trust themselves. They don't trust their own decision making. And they also carry around some sort of fears of rejection and abandonment, right? It feels like people are going to leave me. It feels like people aren't going to show up. If they discover that I'm not good enough, then they're definitely going to leave because obviously I'm not good enough, right?
Mm,
So these are the kind of narratives. The behavior of that type of person, they'll be more just anxious. They'll be the one who wants to solve everything in an argument. They're the one chasing you around the room saying, no, we got to figure this out right now, and we won't go to bed until it's figured out. They're more clingy in dating. They're the people pleasers, trying to keep everybody happy so that they don't get rejected, right? If I keep you happy, then I'll be okay. They also tend to pick partners who might be seen as kind of like a project. If I could be valuable, then it'll make up the gap for the fact that maybe I don't totally feel lovable,
right.
and you'll stay. So that's the anxiously attached programming. So the avoidantly attached, these are those who operate more from a fear of rejection or a sensitivity to rejection. They will also sometimes have a bit of a narrative of, I'm not good enough, but they protect themselves in a different kind of way. They're the ones that use kind of the shield or the wall or running away. This
Mm,
is the person in a conflict who shuts down and goes silent. they just wall up, they get out of there. Vulnerability is not safe. Getting too open and too close is not safe because I don't want to get hurt. This is, it seems to be more common in men than women in most of the situations that I work with, but that's not always true because I'm more the anxiously and my wife is more of the avoidant if we, lean one way. And they will oftentimes have a hard time committing in relationships in like dating. And then there's kind of what a lot of people deem as like the goal or the dream, because it's the most healthy style, is the securely attached. And there technically is a fourth, but for simplicity's sake, we'll just use the three. There's the securely attached. They know their worth. They know their value. They know that no matter what's happening in their relationship, that they're still okay. They're still lovable. They kind of can fill up their own cup, and then the relationships in their life just overflow the cup. That's bonus material. It's good at that point. They tend to set more firm boundaries because they respect themselves. They know what they want. They are able to set those boundaries from an emotionally regulated place. So they're not going to make people mad and just be critical, right? It's not like telling you what to do and being all in your face about it. They're they're just calm, secure,
Mm.
connected with themselves and with other people, and they tend to have more healthy relationships with better patterns because of simply how they feel about themselves and how they feel about love. And I'll pause. So those are three types of programming. We can talk about like where they come from, but I think that kind of lays the foundation of what an attachment style means.
Yes, that is super helpful. And I think what when as I hear you talk about that, I'm obviously thinking through the lens of a parent and thinking, okay, if I have an anxious attachment style, and I would like to talk for at least a minute or two about where that comes from, because I think it's always good to know, but I can see how now that's going to impact how my relationship is with my child, because
Yes.
what I see a lot, and maybe you can help me break this down, but what we see a lot in our parents who have kids who are struggling, right? The kids are legitimately at risk, right? This is not just,
Right.
"Oh, I think my 3-year-old might die if I don't feed him organic baby food." Like, this is my kid is legitimately in some seriously scary situations,
Yeah.
and so we tend to wanna control. We wanna control everything. We
Yep.
wanna know, "Where are
Yep.
you all the
Yep.
time?" And we wanna so is that the anxious attachment style, or, like, how do I understand my responses in that
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah. So we put these labels on things just to make it easier and keep track of them. It's not like a virus. Like I get a virus, you can find it in my body.
Right.
Like by its molecular construction that that's what it is. This is not as cut and clear as that. What I think is almost more important than deeming like, is that anxious? Is this avoidant? Like whatever. It's just looking at where is my feelings, my emotions, and my behaviors coming from.
Mhm.
So, for example, the parent who is maybe really anxious, really controlling, the what you might call a helicopter parent, whatever.
Yeah.
An example of understanding that first, because we'll understand where it comes from and then the impact. Those are two separate things, right? The past and then the future. The past says, well, maybe you feel that way because you had that happen to you when you were young.
Mm.
You got the message that you aren't okay on your own. You can't make your own decisions. Mom has to be the one to take care of you. And maybe that robbed you of some confidence. And because it robbed you of confidence, it built into you a lot of anxiety. And all of a sudden, you're the mom, and then you feel a little bit out of control already because you don't really trust yourself. You don't really even know that, you're good enough or that you can handle things. And then you kind of project that anxiety onto your kid,
Mm.
doubling down on control, right? If I don't feel control within me, I'm going to try to create control
Yeah.
externally. Or another example could be there's so many forms of this is maybe, maybe there was a high critical home, mom and dad always coming down on you and always telling you, basically the message was you got to be perfect for all the neighbors. Nobody can see that we're flawed. Nobody can see we're a family of human beings.
Right.
Like we got to look like perfect little angels
Yeah.
that just got shot down here by God
Yeah.
like yesterday. And because of that, you carry in this anxiety to be perfect because you don't believe you're good enough. Every time you make a mistake, you feel like you're flawed. and then you might project that on to your child because they're in the most imperfect state they could possibly be if they are, just ripping through all of that difficulty that, drugs and alcohol brings. They're in their most shattered state. And that can bring such heightened anxiety where you're projecting that same fear of not being good enough onto them. That's like a couple of examples of maybe how it could affect the parent-child relationship.
Right. That it makes a ton of sense because we do, and it's funny that you said that about men maybe tending more towards the avoidant because this we see this all the time too, which is mom is like, I am going to step in, I'm going to figure this out. And the tendency is to lean toward control. I need to
Yeah.
control everything. And dad tends to, and for all the dads listening, I'm not saying this is you, but this is
Yeah.
this is the trend that we see is dads tend to kind of turtle in and shut down and be like, okay, my partner, my wife is gonna deal with this. I can't deal with this. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
they just shut down. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting to me.
Totally. So to shed some light on that, if we look at maybe even some of the cultural factors that go into that, so like men, I feel like they are okay to have all of their feelings until they're about 13 years old, about like 12 or 13, and then from their male like attachment figure or their dad, they get the message that basically says like, no, we remove those feelings. Those are
Mm,
feminine. You can feel anger, you can feel excitement, um, you can feel happy, and outside of that, for the most part, everything is not okay. Like, if you're gonna cry, you gotta go to your room until you can come out and be part of this family again. Oh, you hear the message in that, right?
yeah.
It's like you literally are exiled if you have these feelings. And so what do they learn to do? Become hyper independent.
Right.
Swallow it. Go quiet. Don't say anything. Avoid, shut down. It's crawling into the foxhole or the bomb shelter. I'm going to just brace for impact. You'll see it in conflict too, like between partners. She's just freaking out, being like, "Why don't you say anything?" And he's like, "I am so scared. I don't want to say anything." Right?
Yes.
And so I can. It's interesting to hear you say that that's the trend because I don't have a ton of experience your um with that situation, with
Yeah.
the parent of a child who's dealing with that,
Yeah.
but it doesn't surprise me. That's totally falls into the pattern.
It's so common and again, not 100%, but it tends to be that way. And of course, there's times too when mom shuts down. But we tend to
Yeah.
see the more of that need for control and also just the anxiousness, this constant, it's like there's this little, anxious hamster just running in our chest and in our
Yeah.
brain because we may be just anxious by default by our wiring
Yep.
and then we have a legitimately anxiety producing situation going on. Because I think even for a secure parent, let's say you've got the
Oh, yeah.
magic secure, designation, um, a situation like this is going to be anxiety producing. So
Of
it
course.
just makes everything more complex. And I just
Yeah.
wonder if somebody is listening and they're like, whoa, that's me. Like, I do tend to avoid more, or I am more on the anxious side. Like, what do we do with that? Who do we? Because I don't
Yeah.
think you can just
Yeah.
talk yourself out of it, right? It's
No, no.
really hard.
Yeah, you really can't. And well, and before I go there too, I want to paint a picture or a dream of what is the alternative too, because some people who live in either the avoidant place or the anxious place, they don't really know what it would even look
Mm,
like. You're like, what else am I supposed to do?
right.
Like this is, y- you know, this feels impossible. So, what it could look like, and I'm going to describe a person in like the most perfectly secure
Okay.
place, right?
Okay.
And this is not a person that actually exists all of the time.
Right. So don't make
But
this your
the
goal.
idea is no, no. It is your goal to get closer, and closer is the word,
Yeah.
right? It's not to just be this all of the time because I will tell you what, in that kind of crisis situation, like you said, the most healthy, grounded, secure individuals are going to have moments where they just lose it.
Yeah.
They just lose their freaking marbles and they're like, I cannot clean them up even on my own. This is too hard. And so I'm gonna describe it, idealize it a little bit and give that caveat
Okay.
before we do. So, the more securely attached person in that scenario, a few things are gonna happen. One, instead of being maybe coming down on their child with, like, a lot of pressure, sometimes that pressure could look like criticism, right? When you just lose your mind and maybe you screaming them just to get their stuff together or, whatever it is, the criticism that could come because it's frustrating when a kid is doing that over and over and over again. And you feel like, gosh, this is so obvious. You got to just do something different, right? So the criticism, the heavy control, most likely that's going to push the child away and not create a dynamic where they're more open to receiving help. Okay, so the opposite of that is the parent who is able to have a deep sense of peace and safety knowing that, like, no matter what happens, that, like, they will be okay in themselves, right? There can be tragedies that happen. There can be pain that happens. It is painful, but they also have other sources of peace where their happiness isn't contingent on, like, their child's sobriety, for example.
Right.
It's not contingent on that. It's contingent on other things like their own sense of self-worth, their own connection with maybe their higher power, their connection with meaning and purpose deeper in their lives, right? They they do not see their child's behavior as a threat to their own worth, right? I'm such a bad mom. I'm such a bad dad. I'm sure you see
Oh
that all
my
the time,
gosh.
right?
Yes.
It's they're removed from that narrative. They realize, okay, maybe some of the things I've done have influenced this in some regard. Sure, that's what life is. And okay, well, what are we going to do about it now? But it's not the I'm bad, right? That's a shame narrative. So they're removed from that. They also have the capacity, we'll go to the avoidance side. That person has the capacity
Okay.
to engage in the process, and it's not emotionally overwhelming for them to where it feels like, well, this is too much. They're able to engage in vulnerable conversations with their child or with their partner because it's hard to go through that with a partner, right? Super hard. Where I can even see it now, right? The one who shuts down a little bit more is, yelling about how, do you even care about our kid? What are you doing? Like, oh, I feel like I'm on my own over here. The other one feels like they're a piece of garbage because they're getting yelled at. And so they shut down. And the more they shut down, the other one feels like they're just being abandoned. And so they get louder. And the more they get loud, the other one feels even more unsafe. And so it extends to the couple dynamic as well as the parent-child dynamic. They follow very similar patterns, and the secure are able to have those conversations, be vulnerable while being honest, without being critical, while staying connected, and knowing that no matter what happens, like, my worth is intact, and that's not going anywhere.
It sounds so much like a person who probably has done some work because I don't know a lot of people that just arrive in adulthood or in parenthood
Oh, yeah.
like this, right? So it sounds like somebody who's done some work. And I think the thing that stood out the most to me, what you said, is somebody who can see the bigger picture, somebody who isn't tying their self worth to what their child is doing or what their spouse is doing or what, you know, it's, I see it like a broader lens, like, okay, yeah, this is going on and this is going on, and I'm going to be okay. And I think that takes
Yeah.
a lot of work to get to that place, especially if you were raised in a home where there was a lot of one or the other, like, things were leaning heavily one way or the other. And you also mentioned, leaning into your higher power, which I think is so important because as you were going through all of that, I was like, but how would you do that? But how would you do that? But how would you do that? And the only thing that I could come up with was for me at least, I know I have to believe that there is something bigger, a bigger force in the world that
Yeah.
is at play because what I see in front of me is chaos and craziness.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so those are all really helpful points that you made about being able to be vulnerable, being able to engage, even if it is difficult. I just to me, it felt like a very well-rounded person, a person who could be calm in the face of crisis.
Yes. That's true right there.
Oh, wow. Can we just is there like a
Yeah.
button that we a secure touch button that you
That we can hit?
Yes.
Well, here's the good news is that it's not one single button, but there's a lot of buttons that, yeah, if we push them, it will move you towards that. And it's not some like weird little mystery, like how do we become that? There's part of the work that I've dedicated my life to do is figuring out systems and processes to help people to become that, to become secure. And there's so much here that I could talk about. It's almost hard to know where to start, but maybe I'll start with a few things, tying back to how I was seeing that there's some gaps in therapy. What I do now is strictly within like the category of coaching
Mhm.
at this point, because we've leaned a little bit outside of like the traditional therapeutic model. And there's a lot of people who come to us who are saying, I am in this either anxious or avoidant camp. I've been there my whole life. I don't feel good enough. I'm a people pleaser. I don't regulate my emotions. And they're like, I want to feel confident, grounded in myself, all the things we just described. And most of these individuals have been doing therapy for years. They've been
Mm.
going and they've been going and have been going and been stuck. They've been reading all the right books. Oh, I read Attached. I read this. And I read, Gabor Mate's book, like whatever.
Right.
And they've got the knowledge. Like, goodness gracious, they could teach a class on it, probably better than I could as some of them.
Yes.
And but what I've recognized that they're missing are a few things. There's 4 elements, and maybe we'll talk about these because this will help a person. Because if you're listening to the podcast here, I'm going to guess that you're trying therapy. You're trying all sorts of stuff. And that's why I'm going to this instead of to more of the nitty gritty basics on like how we become that. But I want to focus on the process
Right.
because if you can fix the process, then everything else starts working better. So the first one is we have to think about how these attachment styles are formed. They are formed through emotional experiences. I mentioned 2: a critical mother who always makes you feel like you're not good enough, an emotionally distant father who kind of leaves a question mark there of, am I good enough? Like, are people going to leave? Maybe somebody who actually left. There are just moments, right? Or maybe living in a highly like a religious home where there was a whole lot more obedience taught and not a lot of grace taught, right?
Mhm.
You have to be perfect in order to be loved was the message that you got, whether they meant to or not. Like that's the one you got. So those are all experiences where you felt something. You felt not good enough. You felt afraid that you were going to get left. And so what we need to do is create corrective emotional experiences. Logic and information will never create a transformation. You can't. I don't know if you see the picture frame, but I have one on my wall here. It says you have to feel something to heal something,
Right.
and so the idea is that you would need to, in order to make this transition from more anxiously or avoidant attached to secure, is you need to have emotional experiences where you feel quite literally within inside of you the opposite of what drives the anxiousness, which is you need to feel a deep sense of self-compassion, like actually feel it. It's going to bring some tears to your eyes, kind of thing. A sense of self-love, self-nurturing, a connection, or maybe a love to your higher power, feeling like seen, loved, and chosen there, feeling strong, or a sense of confidence. And so that's kind of where, my job is. I want to provide experiences for people that facilitate, or almost like manufacture sounds weird because it makes it sound like it's fake, but like for
Yeah.
lack of a better word, manufacture
Yeah.
those feelings live in the room. So that's pillar number 1 of the things that we're missing. But I want to pause because I don't want to go on too long here.
Yeah, no, that sounds very logical, and I think it's I actually like the word manufacture because we talk about that often with our parents is sometimes you have to manufacture a situation that meets the needs of whatever your kid needs, right? Like, sometimes you just
Yeah.
have to do that, and it isn't that it's fake, it's that it's maybe the better word would be intentionally crafted versus
Yeah.
manufactured, right? So we
Yeah.
intentionally create these experiences, that just makes so much sense, that create those feelings in you. And do you have to do that for a certain amount of time? Like, does it take repetition to be able to sort of, like,
Uh,
counteract the
did Oh my gosh. I'm smiling. I feel like people are gonna think we talked before
We did
this
not
because
talk.
no, not at all. I just barely met you.
Yeah.
So here's the craziest part: is that the The second pillar that I noticed that a lot of times therapy was missing is repetition. You
Mm,
literally said the word, and it's number 2. So, oftentimes people go and they, rely on their therapist week to week,
yeah.
and they'll go in there, and they'll feel pretty good, and it's nice, and, like, sure, they're getting some progress, like, there's some work being done, not to, like, discount the entire thing, but then they leave, and there's no way of getting in any more reps. It's like,
Mm,
"Well, now what do I do? How do I go deeper? You know, you told me to journal. Like, what does that even mean? Like, journal about what? Like, just write about my day? Like, I don't know. It's just a lack of an ability to get in those reps. And so, yes, repetition is important. The more frequent and the more intense, frequency and intensity. Sometimes you're going to have like a gourmet pizza where it's like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. I'm feeling so much self love. I'm literally crying. And I want to shout it on the rooftops. And the other times, you're gonna be in a situation where it's more like a Little Caesars. It's like a $5, but it's good still. It's like, "Okay, I'm in the moment. I'm feeling a little triggered, feeling like I'm not a good enough parent right now." And I'm closing my eyes and giving that part of me a little bit of compassion, and that feels good. That feels nice. Like, I'm not crying. It's not off the charts, but it feels good. But those are different kinds of reps, and we need a lot of different kinds of reps.
yeah, that I could definitely see that. And also sometimes you get off track, right? Like you're doing your reps and then something like side rails you over
Yeah,
here. And
yep.
then 3 months later you're like, wait a minute, what was I doing back then? And you have to go
Yeah.
back to that.
Yes, yes, and, you know, as we speak about this, one of the more tangible ways of getting reps that, like, we created in what we do is we will give people, like, a library of, like, videos and modules where they can, like, go back to, and it's, like, already curated, so you're not
Mm,
guessing, right? Because you can pick up every book and every random podcast and hope to maybe figure out what's my rep here, but you first have to discover the rep, and then you have to execute on it, and you don't even know if it's the right one for you, right?
yeah.
It's like wandering into the gym if you've never worked out before and you're like, I don't know, I'm just gonna pull on this rope and like push this around and like, did that work? How many am I supposed to do? And so that's one thing I feel like people are just missing is clarity.
Yeah.
And that's kind of almost like the third point is they're missing oftentimes a structured framework, like step by step, clear path, because we can get so disorganized in our process of trying to become more secure by just grabbing every random bit of information we can find on the internet and
Yeah.
saying like, "Okay, that's me," right? Saving Instagram reels, listening to another book,
Are
like
you watching my phone?
constantly. I'm watching everyone's phone. I know what that is. I totally do it too. And you never look back on those reels you save, hardly ever.
No.
And yeah, and so it's a repetition, emotional experience, structured framework, and then the last one is honestly community. Like there's a difference when you're trying to become secure, when you're trying to overcome these negative beliefs, heal the parts of you that are steeped in fear and self-doubt, and you have other people there who really get it and understand why you're stuck in the ways that you're stuck, and they're not the friends who are just like, well, just, like, get over it, or, like, "No, it's not your fault." Like, "You don't have to think that way." Like, "Okay, if I could, I would stop, but I
Right.
can't." But when you have people in your corner and community that really know what's going on for you, it's so healing, and this is the craziest part, I have to mention this, I know I'm going on and on, but the experiences that created this anxiety or this anxious attachment, or avoidant attachment, whatever it is, those were experiences where, in the presence of somebody who is supposed to be there for you in one way or another, they were not. And it doesn't mean mom and dad were bad. It might mean like you needed somebody to come and scoop you up when you were crying, but mom was taking care of like six other kids.
Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing bad with that,
Yeah.
but it left in you that fear of no one's gonna be there for me. And then you get into a community and the opposite happens. You come vulnerable, raw, real, authentic yourself. Scary, scary, scary. And then you are just loved. You are scooped up and held with so much kindness and compassion. And that just heals your little nervous system down deep. Without you even knowing that it's happening. It's like it's like your brain, your body gets a hug internally from being with the people that are around you. And that's one rep. That's a rep of the emotional experiences that I'm talking about.
Right. Right. That's funny because I was gonna ask you, so how does community play into this? Sure, right?
There we
Right
go.
on the
I
same
We're on the
tangent.
same wavelength
Same
today. I love this.
wavelength,
It's
exactly.
probably because we both broke our jaws. We're, like,
I think
resonating
that's
right
it.
now.
I think it's the Broken Jaw
Yeah.
Club. But I agree, and that's, we have an online community for our moms who are going through this experience, and I see the same thing where it's like, "Oh, I can be vulnerable here, and I can show
Mm,
up here not knowing what the heck I'm doing, and it's okay to do that."
yeah.
And I'm curious too what, I don't know how to phrase this. Like, what comes to mind for me too is it takes a certain amount of mindfulness. So even if I'm doing my reps and I have this structured
Mm,
path, it seems like it just takes a certain level of being able to be aware of,
yep.
oh, that's my old pattern. I might have
Yep, yep, yep.
done that, and now I need to do this. Do you see that
Yeah.
too?
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
Can I give your audience, like, the a gift?
Oh,
I'm
100%.
gonna g I'm gonna give you a sweet gift right
Yep.
now. Yeah, so I'm gonna give you a tool to do that, and it's like the one of the most powerful things. So I run this program called the Secure Self Club. It's is what it sounds like. We become secure through the process, and one of the foundational tools that we give you in the very beginning is called the tempo cycle. TEMPO, kind of like tempo to a beat
Yeah.
or a song. And this is one of the first things we do because it lays the foundation of awareness around what we call that cycle or that pattern,
Okay.
because it's a pattern, right? It's fears, beliefs, protective mechanisms, triggers, like all, and it feels chaotic when you're in it. But with this framework, it makes it very simple to know where you're at and kind of how to get out of the pattern. So, T is for trigger. Okay. So T is a triggering situation that brings up the we'll take this scenario of the mom who thinks that she's not good enough. She melts into a little puddle anytime her son has a relapse or something, right? So that's the situation. She hears that he's not doing good. He does something, maybe he steals something to go get some more drugs. Something happens that's perpetuating the addiction, and she starts into her tempo cycle. She recognizes, wow, that's the T. Those are my triggers. And you could line them up. I guarantee if you're listening, you could pause this, you could write down every single situation that triggers you,
Yeah.
right? You could put a list, and I would encourage you to do it. And then the next one is the E, the emotion that comes from that, right? I feel anxiety. I feel worthless. I feel self-doubt. I feel sadness. Just write down the emotions. We're just being aware of what's there. And it's important because later on, we start trying to fix the emotions through maladaptive behaviors or
Mhm.
behaviors that aren't very helpful. But we'll go there in a minute. Then there's the M, TEM. We're at the M now. M is the meaning that I make out of the situation. My son, he just stole something so that he could buy more, and therefore, I'm a bad mom.
Mhm.
I raised him bad,
Mhm.
this and that, all the different meanings that you can tell yourself in that moment. We'll keep it simple. I'm a bad mom.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got this not good enough feeling, anxiety in the E. M is I'm a bad mom. That's the meaning you're making. And then TEMP, P is for protection. P is where you protect yourself, or you kind of go to a protective mechanism, protect them, protect you from whatever threat you're seeing, right? That might look like going into helicopter mode and like shutting everything down, which let's say that's it, right? Coming down on your son real hard and, locking him down, more restrictions, more this, more that. The O of the outcome is where the last piece is. Outcome is he's pushing back. He's mad at you. He's screaming in your face, I hate you, mom. Like whatever's going on, right? And what that leaves you with is more of a feeling that you're a bad mom. It starts to cycle again. That's the new trigger,
Mm.
maybe his behavior. If we were to do that with a couple, I'll do a really quick example because we now know the framework. The T is your partner is shutting down because you guys are having some sort of argument, right? The tensions are high. He starts shutting down, and the emotion is anxiety and hurt. The M is he doesn't like me. He's leaving. He's wishes he could find somebody else. The P is I'm maybe going to maybe either get more critical or I'm going to try to people please to try to make him happy and hide my feelings. The O is if I'm people pleasing, I'm gonna wind up resentful and he's never actually gonna know what I want, and then we're gonna keep fighting. Or if I get critical, I'm gonna push him away even further. And so you can see, you can map it out like any T trigger. They didn't text me back and I don't feel good enough. There's a trigger. That you could just line them
Yes.
all up. My partner got mad at me when I came home from work. There's a trigger. And you just plug it into the cycle. And what's so cool about this is that each stage of the cycle, you can interrupt it. You can
Mm,
interrupt it at the T by doing the deep internal work to help your nervous system not respond with so much fear. You can interrupt it at the E through, emotionally regulating your emotions in different ways. You can do it at the M by challenging negative beliefs. You can do it at the P by just choosing to do something literally different if everything's the same.
right.
The O, you're kind of out of your control at that point. It's just what's happening. So you can't interrupt it there. But you can stop yourself from going into another cycle. But yes, that is a tool that I would say, if you work reps on that, you map it out, that's gonna go a long way.
Yes, I love tools like this because they're memorable, and I can see that the more you worked with this, you might be able to, like, interrupt the cycle at the P, and then at the M, and then at the E, and then
Mhm.
maybe if you're getting
Yes,
really
yes,
good,
yes, yes.
you could interrupt it right when you notice you're triggered. "Oh my gosh, he came home smelling like weed again. We've had this conversation
Yeah,
11,000
there you
times."
go, that's a good one.
And, that is such a common trigger. The action is a trigger, the smell is a trigger, right? Sometimes it's actually the
Yeah,
things like a smell or a
sensory.
sound or
Yeah,
sensory thing, yeah.
yeah,
And if you could notice it then I can see how that would just like whoop, it like rewinds all of the stuff that was gonna come
yeah.
afterward.
Yeah, and what's so cool about this is that, um, this is like an in the moment tool and a prevention tool. It's putting out
Yeah.
fires and preventing them. How you use it to prevent them is you map it out when everything is good, when everything is calm, and you kind of plan out in your head, wow, how do I want to respond here? And then it's also in the moment putting out fires, because what this does too is if you, in a moment of trigger, you're feeling all the feelings, if you can somehow get yourself to pause and map this out, what that will do is it'll actually activate a different part of your brain. Because in your fear, you're down here in your base brain.
Mm.
Everything's lit up there. And your front brain, where you make all your rational decisions, it's just offline. It's on vacation. It's not doing anything right now. And so as soon as you start doing this, it's a very logical front brain process. And so you're going to activate the front brain, which is going to calm you down, get you in a place where you're going to be able to more rationally work through this.
Mm.
So it's really cool. It can be used many, many ways.
It is super helpful. I love that. Very enlightening just to be aware of each one of those things. I think the more, even just following a framework like that slows you down a little bit. It puts a little bit of space between that trigger and whatever that outcome's going to be. So that's incredibly helpful. And I know I
Mm.
have to let you go, but you do have a free seminar, right? From anxious to
Yeah.
secure. Is that something people can
Yep.
access, or how do we get? Okay.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. So there's a couple ways. So that seminar goes a little bit more in depth on the four essential elements that you need if you really want to become secure in the way that we've described it. And it gives you more in depth. It's free. It's a great place to start.
Okay.
You can find it in two places. Go to my Instagram, The Art of Healing by Trevor. That's where most people find me. Or you can go to my website, theartofhealingbytrevor.com.
Okay, and that has everything there, and I assume they can access the Secure Self Club there too. I love the name, by the way. It's
Yeah.
so perfect. It's like, this is what it is. No guessing.
This is what it is. This
Sometimes
is what we
people
do.
have these very fancy, fluffy, like crazy names, and I just love the Secure Self Club. It's so perfect.
Yeah.
Oh my
I
gosh.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This is super helpful. I love how action oriented it is. Not that we don't love therapy, which tends to look back, but this feels to me like, okay, I've got this thing that I want to work on, and you give tools to actually like move forward in that. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me here. It's been great.
Awesome. Thanks so much.